Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today, May 17th, as we come together to honor what would have been the 91st birthday of Dr. Ulrike Gerdhammer, and to also honor his incredible legacy because his work has profoundly changed the way so many of us understand health and symptoms and the human body. We have a wonderful program for you today with a number of presenters, but first I want to ask Dr. Varghese, GHK Global's founder, Global GHK's founder and leader, for a few words. Dr. Verghese.
Thank you, Andy. Respected faculty members, mentors, dear friends, colleagues, and seekers of truth from different parts of the world. Today, on the 91st birth anniversary of Dr. J. Hammer, celebrated globally as World GNM or GHK Day, I bow my head in gratitude to God Almighty. In my understanding, humanity is occasionally blessed through great visionaries who transform our understanding of healing. In my life, two such legends are Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, and Dr. J. Hammer, who revealed the five biological laws of nature. I consider it one of the greatest blessings of my life that I had the opportunity to study the teachings of both these leaders. Before entering homeopathy, I underwent priestly formation for nearly 6 years as part of a longer priestly training program extending beyond 10 years. During that period, I successfully completed a 3 year philosophy course from the Pontifical Institute of Theology and Philosophy, affiliated with the Lateran University, Rome, and received a diploma in philosophy. Thereafter, my homeopathic journey began in 1974 and I completed my collegiate education in 1978. Since then, I have been practicing homeopathy continuously. That philosophical background helped me deeply in understanding the philosophy of homeopathy, especially the subtle principles concerning the vital force and chronic miasm emphasized by Dr. Hahnemann. Looking back today, I feel that God redirected me from priestly formation into the healing profession through homeopathy. I also feel that this journey was designed in such a way that my philosophical bent of mind helped me first to understand the deeper philosophy of homeopathy, and later the very same philosophical attitude helped me to understand the five biological laws of nature revealed by Dr. Hammer. Very often, I felt like a lone traveler because I could not fully agree with the superficial ways in which homeopathy was commonly taught and practiced. I was searching for deeper truths behind disease and healing. God also blessed my family in a special way. I married a homeopathic doctor, and my daughter also became a homeopathic doctor. My second son, now 38 years old, was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and mental retardation and he remains totally dependent on us. Just as Dr. Hammer's personal life experience led him to search deeply into the phenomena called a disease, my own life experiences with my son intensified my search for the truths behind health, disease, and cure. That profound personal journey became one of the major motivations that led me to plunge into deeply into the truths revealed by Dr. Hammer. Like many couples, our married life also passed through stressful situations because my wife and I had very different personalities and character traits. Yet I always remained convinced that meaningful and harmonious life together was possible. This personal experience later deepened my interest in Dr. Hammer's concept of schizophrenic constellations. I must honestly acknowledge that it was through the knowledge of GNM or GHK, especially the understanding of constellations, that I could better understand my own patterns and adjust more consciously and compassionately within family life. Married in 1983, we have now shared more than 4 decades of life together. With gratitude to God and through the insights gained from GHK, I can sincerely say that this understanding helped me lead a happier, healthier, and more peaceful family life. Interestingly, in the same year I entered professional practice 1978, Dr. Hammer experienced the tragic loss of his son Dirk, which later led to the discovery of the five biological laws. In 2008, one of my respected homeopathy gurus, Dr. Praful Vijayakar, first introduced me to some sparks of Dr. Hammer's teachings. Due to personal reasons, I could not pursue them deeply until 2013. Today, I do not consider these events accidental coincidences. I believe they were part of a divine program unfolding through my life. By integrating the philosophies of Dr. Hahnemann and Dr. Hammer, I gradually became convinced that these two sciences together can offer humanity a revolutionary understanding of health, disease, and cure. That conviction inspired me to begin teaching GNM, later GHK. In 2017, the same year Dr. Hammer passed away, we founded GNM India, which later evolved into Global GHK. Looking back today, I feel deeply moved by the coincidence of timing. With humility, I carry a stronger inner conviction that the responsibility for spreading this revolutionary knowledge was in some way entrusted to me during that important transition period. The continuing support we receive from sincere seekers and teachers across the world strengthens my sense of responsibility to carry this mission forward for the benefit of humanity. After 2020, our mission naturally shifted into online education through regular Sunday classes and Wednesday webinars. Every January and May, we conduct global celebrations with presentations from GHK teachers around the world. From January 2026 onward, we introduced a new format called the Living GHK, where presenters share their practical experiences and insights. The response from participants across the world has been deeply encouraging. For me, GHK is not merely a framework for understanding health, disease, and cure. It is also a way of life. The wisdom revealed by Dr. Hammer can help human beings live with greater awareness, freedom from fear, emotional understanding, and inner peace until the natural end of life designed by God. That is the deeper meaning behind the title of this mega event, Living GHK. It is not simply about theory. It's a platform where individuals share their life experiences and how the knowledge revealed by Dr. Hammer has helped them in practical life, relationships, health, and emotional understanding. At this moment, I express my heartfelt gratitude to all my teachers, especially Caroline Markle, a direct disciple of Dr. Hammer, from whom I had the privilege to learn GHK lessons. I also express my special gratitude to Andy Loki for taking remarkable initiative in organizing this mega event called Living GHK. I sincerely thank all our mentors, friends, and the technical support team who dedicated their time, energy, talents, and resources for the growth of Global GHK since 2017. My humble request to all participants and viewers is this: please share these recordings and presentations so that more and more people may benefit from this revolutionary humanitarian wisdom. Humanity deserves freedom from fear about diseases. Humanity deserves truth. Humanity deserves compassionate understanding. Let us preserve authentic GHK for a healing humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Varghese, for those very wise words. Let us begin. So, today's event is not about fear or diagnosis or labels. It's about perspective, especially to those who are new to GNM GHK and are trying to figure out what is this? What's it all about? Today is about learning about how the exact same symptoms or disease can look completely different depending on the lens through which we view it. Over the next hour, we're going to hear personal stories from individuals who experienced symptoms or even diagnoses that many of us might have think about, oh, I'm worried about this. There's maybe a sense of urgency or hopelessness, even if given to us from the modern medicine, the allopathic perspective. You'll hear what their symptoms mean from the modern medicine view, potential treatments, interventions often just prescribed, and then you'll hear what these same symptoms mean through the lens of Germanische Heilkunde, Germanic New Medicine. So the presenters, each of them will share the biological meaning behind the symptom, the conflict connected to it, and what they did to support resolution and completion of the healing phase. Our goal today is not to tell you what to think, but to invite you to think differently, to consider that symptoms may not be random mistakes of the body, but instead are meaningful biological responses that have purpose and logic behind them. So, thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to your openness. And let's begin with our wonderful presenters. Our first speaker will be Danny, and he will be describing a story about his back pain. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you, Andy. Sorry, let me just, I hope my internet connection is going a bit wonky and kicking me out. But anyway. Okay, back pain. Let me give you my story on lower back pain. It's quite a horror story from the years of 2000 to 2015 approximately. I had chronic lower back pain to the point where I would spend between 1 to 2 months a year laying on my bedroom floor outside my bathroom because I could barely get myself up onto the toilet. This was chronic before I found Dr. Hummer in 2012. And then I went through a learning curve of exactly what caused my bad back and how to manage it. Now, in those years of having chronic lower back pain, and I'm talking chronic to the point where I could not stand up, I had surgeons chasing me around Bombay, trying to convince me to remove the discs from my lumbar spine, L1 to L5, and have my lumbar spine vertebrae fused. They argued that this would end my chronic back problem of having to lay on my bedroom floor between 1 to 2 months a year. But obviously, when you remove the discs in your spine and you fuse those discs, you lose a significant amount of your ability to bend over because they literally fuse those parts of the spine. Luckily, I ignored the cries and screams of the spinal surgeons in India, and I carried on through the punishing program of spending 1 to 2 months a year on my back, laying on my bedroom floor until I was unable to start to learn to manage that program. So when I found Dr. Hummer in 2012, my first project that I started to work on learning to solve was my lower back problems. And what I learned in that process, I still had many back programs running and times where I had lower back pain over the course of a few episodes of that lower back pain. Basically, what I did is I learned to switch that back pain off like a light switch. The way the back program works according is there's no pain whilst you are conflict active. There is no pain. You experience pain in your lower back when you resolve the conflict, and it's what Dr. Hummer called a central self-worth conflict. So it's some if resolve that conflict. As soon as I woke up in the morning with a bad back, I would ask myself the question, what conflict, what and it's much easier to look at a window of 24 hours to identify the problem that you resolved. And if I resolved that before I got out of bed, then I could switch that pain off in between 10 to 15 minutes. The longer that I let that program run, if it took me 1 hour to find out what central self-worth conflict I resolved the day before, then I would have pain for 1 hour. If it took me 24 hours, then I would have pain for 24 hours. Ultimately, I learned to completely remove that lower back lumbar spine pain problem. I had one last major episode in 2020, where in October and November of 2020, during the pandemic, basically I was in bed for 2 months because I could not get back to India. And that program, which I booked a flight to come back to India, it disappeared. So I need to switch that alarm sound off. Thank you. Sorry for that. But yes, I had that last episode in 2020, and I have been pain-free from lower back pain ever since. So I learned to resolve that and it has transformed my life.
Okay, Danny, thank you for that. You were in and out throughout that, so I just want to reiterate that when you woke up in the morning, you would look at the previous 24 hours to see what track you would have stepped on. Is that correct? And then you would have been able to solve that, understand it, and just finish that, and therefore you did not have pain. Did I hear you correctly?
The pain starts 24 hours after resolving, within 24 hours of resolving the conflict. So if you ever wake up with lumbar spine pain, the question you have to ask yourself is, which central self-worth conflict have I resolved in the last 24 hours? If I solved this problem, and when you consciously connect the problem you solved with the lumbar spine pain, then it triggers a cathartic, spontaneous healing in that, and then you will switch the pain off in 50. If it's a subconscious resolution, they are more difficult to find, and the longer you let it run, the longer. So if I let it run for 24 hours, then I will experience pain for 24 hours.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Okay, super. Thank you for that clarification. Wonderful to hear about that, because low back pain is something that's so very common these days. So thank you, Danny.
Indeed. My
And
pleasure, Andy.
our next speaker will be Ayush, who's talking about the common cold, something I think every single one of us have experienced.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andy. So my story begins in February this year. In February and March, 2 months, I had back-to-back episodes of common cold where I would have stuffy nose, headache, and then nasal discharge, a lot of irritation in my sinus area and throat. So now there was a pattern. I could see there is a pattern. Being a GHK student, I would always see pattern behind my physical discomfort. So there was a pattern. What was it? In both these months, I had attended spiritual conferences for three days long. And ironically, I did not like them because the philosophies which were shared in those conferences did not align with mine. But due to just being aligned with them, I had to endure those 3 days of trouble. So this was one pattern. Another pattern was the symptoms of cold would only come when I would reach back my home, when I'm resting and comfortable, when I've completed my journey. So, so conventionally, if I had not been a GHK student, of course, I would have taken some flu tablets, yeah, cold tablets, Ayurvedic medication or home remedies, etc. But I went back and I opened my GHK books, I studied, and I realized that I am going through healing phase of sting conflict. What is sting conflict? So anything that you experience where you do not agree with something, you feel you are stuck in a situation where you feel sick, stinky, irritable, and I did 1 plus 1 2, and I realized that these two conferences, my non agreement with the philosophies would create some conflict in me, and that when I came back in my comfort of my home, I was healing. And this was a symptom of healing state. What did I do? Very simple. I logged out, I switched off, I unsubscribed from these organizations. And surprisingly, I had to again attend another conference from a more familiar, more lovable school of thought in the month of April. And I enjoyed all these 3 days. And when I came back, there was no symptom. So thanks to GHK, that I was safe from getting dependent on medication or external remedies. So it is so simple. If we just understand GHK, if we are just able to do some research on the pains that we are going through and the episodes that we had just before those pains, we shall be able to resolve our conflict very easily. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful, Ayush. Yes. Oh my gosh. How many of us have had, that type of experience before? So I love that you were able to kind of understand it from a GHK perspective. And it's like you just shifted everything about it. You went back and did another conference with him and you were fine.
Absolutely fine.
That
Absolutely
is
fine.
perfect.
Yes.
I love
Thank
to
you.
hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perfect. So now we're moving on to Christine, who will be talking about her swollen left knee. Christine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation today and for all that Global GHK does. Happy birthday to Dr. Hammer. I've really learned so much about the body, and what I'm about to share, it has a connection to self-evaluation when it is with bones, muscles, plus a swelling, an element of KCT, which is abandonment, isolation, existence conflict, etc. And it has to do with the passing of my mom. So what's interesting is I'm right-handed, so the left side of my body will be my mother side or mother-child, right as partner and everyone else. So both knees were swollen after my mom's passing, after her funeral actually, which was about 3 months after her actual passing. And I just felt like a little bit in limbo until the funeral, and then I could kind of start to begin to close off, or not even close, but complete the healing around her passing after the funeral. And it was so interesting how swollen my knees were. And I knew I was in a healing phase around self-evaluation and around performance, because with the knees, it has to do with performance. But what happened with my left knee is that it was so swollen. I actually was worried about even bending down. If the skin was so tight, it felt like sausages. And I was nervous, and I was like, I might actually have to go and see someone about this swelling. Like, I knew what it was from, but there was, a part of me where I was like, oh, maybe I should have it checked just to be sure. And I was on a call with GHK practitioners, and one of the practitioners had shared, you've resolved a major self-evaluation connecting to your mom, because it was the left one that was just so bad. So I really had to think about it. My brain sees patterns, so I started to connect, okay, well, she passed. I've always felt that I was doing things wrong in her eyes. She was very loving, but very strict. We grew up in a very strict religious home, and you had to do things a certain way. And she was a yeller, and she would yell at us if we didn't do things right. Even into my 40s, she'd still yell at the way I was doing the garbage at times. And I'm like, come on, like, I'm an adult now. I don't need to be, yelled at anymore for this. So I know that was a huge part of it, because with her passing, or with any change in your relationship or in your environment, that's when the healing and resolution can come. So she cannot be upset with me anymore or tell me I'm doing things wrong from my perspective. And so I knew what it was from, and I would talk to myself around like, it's okay with performance, or I am doing a good job. I'm doing the best I can with the skills that I have. That's my favorite phrase for reframing in the brain as far as our core devaluation or what we believe about ourselves. And so as I did that inner work, it's just like symptom comes, I know what the conflict is, what it's connected to, and then I get to do the work on reframing how I view myself, or the perspective or the situation of what's going on. And it has been really neat to observe my body after her passing. The knees went down. I actually can now bend down without pain, which is phenomenal because there were some issues, the years before she passed, and my knees had really been bothering me. But now the knee pain is pretty much gone, which is really, really amazing. And so as I've been healing from, you know, my experience with my mom and where I didn't feel good enough, lower back pain's another one. So thank you for that story. And swollen ankles. But it's almost like the body, to me, it's like the body heals when it has the capacity or healing backwards in a sense. So my ankles are not swollen anymore. Knees are great. So I just feel that my body's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, as I go through and just observe what has presented itself. And my brain always thinks, why? Why is my body turning this on? Or my brain is saying, okay, knees, go into swelling, go into repair. And after the symptom is completed, then it's a huge thank you, body. Thank you for making me stronger. Thank you for the awareness of what the program actually is so that we can do that internal work ourselves and come, to that place within. The answers are in here. And the thing I really appreciate about Dr. Hammer's body map is that whatever's in the body map, it was 100% for everyone. Not sometimes these people, sometimes those people. And so I just really feel it's such a beautiful core root biological law way of looking at the symptoms or what's going on in your body for you to do your own reverse engineering. Thank you.
Oh, Christine, wonderful, wonderful, and a wonderful understanding of Ganesha Heilkunde that you were able to bring forward for, I think, a lot of people. I think a lot will relate to what you just talked about. And I especially liked how you could see your patterns from when you were a child and your mom, your relationship with her, and how ultimately once she passed, you were able to really solve all of that. So loved
Yeah.
it. And so
Thank you.
incredible.
I forgot to share. I'm sorry. I did a video on the healing symptoms after the passing of my mom in January of 2026 in the Global GHK YouTube channel. So people can go back if you've had a parent pass. This is a really big life change, I feel, especially if you've had self-devaluation around that parent. You'll notice just what's happening in the body.
Perfect. So people can go back and listen to that and then hear your story now. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine. That was great. Our next presenter is Salman, who will be talking about postpartum hair loss. So Salman, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Saman Qureshi. I'm from Delhi. And I want to talk about this acute hair fall that I experienced after the birth of my fourth baby. This was 2 years ago. And it was also my initiation into Germanic healing medicine and knowledge. So a few months after the free birth of my fourth baby, I suddenly started experiencing hair loss, and it wasn't gradual. It wasn't just that extra shedding. It was full on. Like within just a few weeks, I kind of went bald, and I remember standing in front of the mirror and kind of just running my fingers through my hair, and entire strands and would just come out, and there was hair everywhere, and at first I tried to stay calm, and because everyone says that postpartum hair fall is it's kind of normalized, but I'd never experienced it before for my first prior three births. So I was very curious, why is it happening now? And but when I started reading up about it, so all sorts of things came up, how hormones and there could be nutritional deficiencies and stress and lack of sleep and everything would be contributing to it. Um, and honestly, like I'd spent many years exploring natural health and healing, um, even prior to this. So I'd given birth to my children naturally, including home births and free birth and water birth. And our family had kind of moved away from um, medicines and interventions. So instead of going to a doctor when this was happening, I turned toward natural remedies only at first. Like I ordered some supplements and started some herbal oils and organic shampoos and some homemade remedies. But it wasn't helping. And I started covering my head, and I was really desperate for solutions and understanding, what was really happening. And then fear started creeping in, because even though those remedies were natural, uh, the lens was still the same. The way we looked at it, that the assumption was still that there's something that is wrong with my body. And emotionally, I started, I was sinking. And and every strand of hair felt very personal. Like, what's wrong and why can't I not get it this time? And hair is, of course, it carries a lot of things for women symbolically. It's your identity, it's your femininity, and most importantly, it's your roots. And that's when, around the same time, something had happened in my personal life. That I'd left my family home in Delhi uh, after experiencing some kind of an emotional conflict, and my mother was not keeping well, and in the allopathic understanding of things. And during a painful conversation, somebody in the family said something that I felt I was being blamed for her health not improving or deteriorating, and that I'm adding to the stress instead of being of any help. And that really hit me hard. I like when I first heard those words, I still remember that I went silent and I went completely numb, because I deeply care for my mother, and I could have never imagined that I'm I could be blamed for her not improving. And mother, of course, my mother was my safe space, my home, my sense of belonging, and everything. So when I lost my roots at an emotional level, I quite literally lost my roots. And that connection I was able to make when I started reading up more on Germanic healing knowledge. And then I had my first consultation with Dr. Varghese. And I thought that was very clear that hair had to do with separation conflict. But what I was reading, and I thought it had more to do with something that I wanted to separate from. But Dr. Varghese made me identify, because it's so nuanced. And why did it happen now? What was happening right before that? Because it has to be that emotional shock has to happen in a way that it catches you off guard. It can't be the everyday stressors that you've been going through. Or the things that you usually complain about. So then I was able to make that connection that it had to do with my separation from my mother. And I recalled that after leaving my house, and even though I had been married for 6 7 years, I remembered when I was talking to my mother on the phone, I told her that for the first time I feel that I've left home. Like after marriage you leave, but it was now that I was feeling that I had left. And so
Okay.
when I had my consultation with Dr. Varghese, for the first time, I wasn't being asked, what deficiency do you have, or, what disease. I was not being labeled, but he asked me that, what is the emotional uh, landscape that you were in before these symptoms actually showed up. And that question really did change everything for me. And then through the first biological law, I learned about the DHS, how this whole unexpected shock, and how when something feels deeply intense, and you have to feel it in isolation. And so my mother is the one that I usually talk to, but I can't talk to her about this also, because then, it'll just add to the whole intensity of the conflict. And so that separation from my mother, my loss of home. Kyra, you have to be a little. Kyra, Kyra.
Salman, how is your
Yeah,
hair now?
it's much better. I mean, the moment I was able to make that connection, it kind of changed overnight. I mean, the
Okay,
shedding
good.
stopped immediately, and it came back, and it came back fuller, and it came back. The quality also changed. They were more
Yep.
black than before. And but this whole thing was very uh, that looking at any symptom as a meaningful biological response, it changed just about everything for me. That it's not a punishment, it's not a malfunction, it is meaningful. And
Super. Thank you,
since
Salman.
then, of course, it has helped me and my entire family, because
Good.
I'm a mother of, Alhamdulillah, with God's grace, I have 5 children under the age of 7. And they
You're a busy
are
woman.
and we some symptom or the other keeps coming up every day, right? There are loose
Yes.
stools, or there's a cough and cold, there's fever. And but now the entire lens of looking at any symptom is so different. I'm not looking at it as a disease at all, so there's no fear coming in. Every time there's fever, I'm like, okay, what happened last night? Oh, there was an argument. Oh, I did not hear. Or there's, if my daughter has a sty in the eye, I know, oh, she didn't want to see this. And
Salman, thank you. Thank you so much, Salman. We need to move on to
yes,
the next speaker, but
yes.
thank you so much for your
Thank you so
contribution.
much for this
And I'm
opportunity, everyone.
glad your hair is doing well at this point. So thank
Yes, thank
you.
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
super. And so our next speaker will be Janine, who will be talking about her feet and 2 programs that we're running in her feet. Thank you for being here, Janine.
Thank you, Andy. And thank you to Global GHK and especially Dr. Hammer for giving us the opportunity to learn from this amazing sacred medicine. So through different periods of my life, I suffered very severe pain in my feet, and they were always cold, and I would wear socks. My husband would piggyback me, or he would drop me with the car because I just couldn't walk long distances, and I couldn't stand without padding underneath my feet. Just rubbing them would soothe the pain. So I do have high arches, but this pain is the pain in the membrane, which is around the bone. It's known as the periosteum, and it's related to a severe separation conflict. So the bones, I also had the self-devaluation because I had this pain for so long, and this would be related to the bones and tendons in itself. So from an allopathic perspective, the periosteum foot pain is like a neuralgic pain. It's a rheumatism. Whereas the self-devaluation, the musculoskeletal bone and tendons, this is like what they call plantar fasciitis, tendonitis, arthritis, heel spurs, circulation problems. So I was running the 2 programs simultaneously. And in German New Medicine, or Germanic Healing Knowledge, this is known as the bone syndrome. And so periosteum is connected to a very severe separation conflict. So we moved a lot as a child. We moved from my grandparents, we separated from them, we started over in a new town. And then from South Africa, we moved to Zimbabwe. So we were always leaving family and friends and starting over. So this to me was a brutal separation. And the periosteum is around that, wanting to separate or not wanting to separate. I also experienced a short-term memory loss, and this is this is a program, part of this, the periosteum, the separation, so that we can forget who we have lost. And so I had experienced this hypersensitivity, the coldness, the stinging pain. And then once I accepted and found resolution and found my place and my friends again, the healing phase came in. And this is where we feel the numbness. So we're numb because we don't want to feel the separation from those people. And this pattern continued right until 4 years ago, where we moved from our farm in California, because we had a beautiful life and I didn't know if we made the right decisions. So we moved to Miami, to the city, because my big boys wanted to come. And this was very tragic for me, because I just wanted my kids to be raised naturally in the nature, but it didn't work out. So it's not about an acidic diet or, wearing bad shoes or walking long distances. This is about a program, a biological program. So I also experienced this self-evaluation because I had this periosteum pain for so long that it created this other one, but this is in a separate brain relay, which is in the cerebral medulla and affects the musculoskeletal. And so I kept thinking there's something wrong with my feet, they're failing me, what's going on? So this was just a self-evaluation. We don't even realize this is happening, but when you're in a self-evaluation, you begin to lose cells in your bone. And so you weaken it, you weaken the tendons, you weaken the bone, and you don't even realize this is happening until you twist your ankle or you just make a jump and you can break your bone. And so when we understand through Germanic healing perspective, we can see that we're running these programs. And once we do, the body begins to heal. And this is where we see the pain, the swelling, the inflammation, and the warmth. And we have to see this. We have to just trust that our body knows how to heal. And that when we have this is when we're in a healing phase, when we have the pain, when we have the swelling. So the story was always about all these relocations. And so once I just resolved it and accepted and came to peace with the situation, the ground I was standing on, believing that my feet were not weak, that they could carry me forward wherever I needed to go, and every transition of life, the pain went away. So now I can walk anywhere, I can stand for hours, I don't have that problem. So yeah, that's it.
Oh my gosh, that is fabulous, Janine. In so many of the stories that have been shared so far, what do? We look outside ourselves for the reason, the cause, right? And also it's like, oh, it's because of this, it's because of this. And then once we know Gemanische Heilkunde, we realize it's inside us. We have the power and the knowledge that once we learn this, we can change our life.
We don't need to take those painkillers and anti-inflammatories because that just stops the healing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Such a valuable lesson for all of us, truly.
Thank you.
Yes. And next we will hear from Dr. Varghese about his lumbar backache, so a low backache.
Thank you, Andy. Hello, everyone. Here I am going to give you the narration how I manage my lumbar backache with the knowledge of GHK. In my keynote speech, I mentioned that throughout my life, I have always been a seeker of truth. With the blessings of God and my philosophical bent of mind, I was naturally drawn toward understanding the deeper realities behind health, disease, and cure. I always consider it a divine blessing that I could learn the great discoveries of Dr. Ike Ham. Earlier, I used to think that accidents were merely accidental happenings without any deeper connection to human conflicts. But my homeopathy guru, Dr. Praful Vijayakar of Mumbai, the very person who first ignited in my mind the sparks of the great wisdom revealed by Dr. Hammer in 2008, used to give several examples showing that even accidents may have biological significance. He explained that the part of the body which gets injured may already be biologically weakened due to a specific conflict affecting that tissue or organ system. At that time, this was difficult for me to fully accept. But around 8 years ago, I had a personal experience that completely changed my understanding. Throughout my professional life, I was deeply involved in homeopathic education, organizational activities, and teaching. I sincerely tried to propagate homeopathy in its original philosophical spirit. But when I openly started teaching GNM, later GHK, many people around me gradually withdrew their support. Many friendships weakened. Even within my own family and professional circles, very few people could understand the importance of these great science. Emotionally, this affected me deeply. According to GHK understanding, the lower lumbar spine is related to support conflicts, especially lack of support and self devaluation. For a long time, I was suffering from chronic lumbar backache. Intellectually, I understood the reason. Yet the pain continued because I was in what Dr. Hammer described as a hanging conflict and hanging healing situation. Then one day, while repairing a doorbell at home, I climbed onto two wooden stools placed one above the other. I slipped and fell, striking exactly on my lower lumbar spine. I still vividly remember the intensity of the shock and pain I felt in that region. The fact that the impact occurred so precisely on the already painful lumbar area deeply impressed me and strengthened my conviction that there is a deeper biological significance behind what we casually call accidents. An orthopedician examined me and diagnosed hairline fractures of the lower lumbar vertebrae. I was advised 90 days of bed rest and asked to wear a supportive belt around my waist. However, internally, I was much more concerned about the understanding given by Dr. Hammer than about the orthopedic diagnosis itself. Deep within my subconscious mind, I was more convinced about the biological meaning behind the injury than about the fracture as a purely mechanical event. Therefore, my attention naturally turned toward my emotional conflicts, especially the deep feeling of lack of support, rather than toward the physical injury alone. I understood this biologically as the manifestation of a deep support conflict already affecting my lumbar spine. While lying in bed, I started deeply reflecting and praying. Slowly, a powerful realization came to me. If this science is truly meant for humanity, then God Himself will support its spread. Even if human beings fail to support me, the divine intelligence behind creation will continue the mission. I was and still am deeply convinced that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, the Alpha and the Omega, the source and the fulfillment of all existence. I am only a limited human being, born at one point in time and destined to disappear one day. But God, who governs creation with infinite wisdom, will carry forward whatever is necessary for humanity. Therefore, I realized that this mission of helping humanity understand the realities behind disease, fear, and the commercialization of healthcare does not ultimately depend upon my limited human strength. I felt peaceful in recognizing that I am only an instrument in a much greater divine design, and that God Himself will guide this mission according to His will. That conviction transformed my inner state. Before even completing 1 month of bed rest, I removed the belt, started moving normally, and resumed my consultations and even began driving again without significant backache. Even today, occasionally, I still get lumbar pain, but now I understand its meaning very clearly. Whenever I emotionally feel unsupported in my GHK mission, especially when I expect support from people and do not receive it, the old conflict becomes active again. But the difference now is this: I no longer fear the pain. I understand the biological meaning behind it. Through prayer, self awareness, faith in God, and understanding the five biological laws, I regain inner balance very quickly. According to Dr. Hammer, healing takes place in a fluid medium. During the healing, recalcification and inflammatory repair process occur, and that itself can produce pain. Therefore, today, my lumbar backache is no longer merely a disease for me, it has become a biological meaning. It has a message helping me understand my emotional state and restore my inner balance. This is why I say GHK is not merely a medical theory, it's a way of understanding life. Thank you very much.
Oh, so well said, Dr. Varghese. You're absolutely right. This is a way of understanding so many parts of who we are, pretty much all of us. And it's such a different perspective. And we're so empowered once we have it. So thank you for your story. That was wonderful. Yes. Our next presenter will be Ajoy, who will be talking about a swollen gallbladder. So welcome, Ajoy.
Thank you, Andy. My topic today is the swollen gallbladder. And what I want to impress on this group is that how the same condition, two different people, one with the knowledge of GHK, the other without, and what happens. So earlier this year in January, I did what we call as a annual check in corporates, right? Which I was unfortunately, obliged to do. And there came out a result saying that there is a slight swelling in the gallbladder. Of course, as expected from all the GHK efficandos, I went about checking on the Learning GNM site what the cause could be and try to find what the conflict was. I was, quite well versed with the popular organs, but gallbladder, well, this one was a new thing. So I hadn't read much. I did the reading, and I knew it was territorial anger in our immediate surroundings, like the workplace, etc., etc. But I could not get any particular conflict data from the past. Then magic happened a few months back. An old colleague of mine from my workplace, out of nowhere, who I had completely lost touch with, came to me since I was a practicing advocate in the High Court. He asked for help. He said his brother was undergoing a bitter divorce and they just couldn't make up their mind as to which lawyer to connect and if I could put them on to somebody, who I trusted. And all that happened. And the next day morning, I woke up with a severe ache in the stomach, as I thought. And then I later realized that it was the gallbladder acting up. And immediately, I knew that I had gone into healing with the same gallbladder, track of mine. Then I went back because this was a friend of mine, my ex-colleague, who I had a very bitter tussles with at the workplace, to the extent that I left the organization, but the conflict was not resolved. I didn't see him after that, but obviously I was carrying it. And that's how bitter it was. And now time had come on full circle, and here he was asking me for help. And I felt kind of an instant victory, a moral superiority that I had got back to him. I don't know what it was, but it looks like I had resolved things in some form. It was me to decide how to help him. And the result, in some form, I had resolved my anger. It no longer remained unexpressed. And there I was. I mean, I did see a doctor, but I didn't do any tests. And with a little bit of luck, thanks to my children who went all through Danny's website and, with all that we could gather from there and the bio switch, of course. Next day morning, that's like 2 days after this, the pain had already begun to subside. And a few days later, can you imagine, a few days later, it was gone completely. It was less than 7 days. I remember very clearly. But while I don't know if it's fully gone, I don't know whether it'll be back. I think not. But I was only sure that it was a knowledge of GHK which did this. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because another dear friend of mine, who's a very senior person in the Indian Army, he called me 3 weeks ago, to tell me that he was hospitalized. And they had diagnosed him with, guess what? Stone in the gallbladder and an enlarged gallbladder. I couldn't help smile internally. I told him the causes, I told him how it happens. And since I knew what he had been through, and I told him that it was the bitter divorce that he had gone through last year, and how he was 2 years back, and how he was definitely healing from that. Well, he's also remarried now and things like that. He understood, he could connect, but he didn't act on it because a few days later he called again and he was at the hospital again. He was getting surgery done for the removal of the gallbladder. So you can only influence as much, I realized. It's that's the difference. It's the same experience. So the difference now is that I still have my gallbladder and he doesn't. And the difference is the knowledge of GHK. So teach your loved ones and the people around you before they actually need it. Help the world live a life free from the fear of disease. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Ajoy, thank you for that. That was amazing to hear. Once we have this information, once we know it, yes, it's like you never go back. You understand things so much more completely. And what a fabulous way of showing what your friend went through and what you went through and the difference afterwards. You have all your parts. He does not. Oh my gosh, loved it. Super. Thank you so much for that. So, our next speaker is myself, and I'm going to be sharing my story about the healing phase that I had last year, last June, where I had 3 programs all at once: a common cold, bronchitis, and pneumonia, along with probably a little kidney collecting tubule. I was flying to Oregon, which is 2,700 miles for me, or 4,300 kilometers, on a Thursday to present a GHK workshop on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I always like to build in time just because of delays and things like that, so I'm not so stressed. And in my second flight, there was a 1 hour delay, and it's like, okay, I'm still good. I'm good. Then there was another hour delay, and then another hour delay. There were about 4 or 5 delays. By that time, I was calm and cool and collected, but on the inside, I was upset that my whole plan had gone. I was going to be getting in so late. I was going to have to, these people who were picking me up were going to have to get out of bed to come and get me in the early morning hours. The whole thing was like not what I wanted at all. So finally, I got there and was able to get to sleep. And it was a 3 hour time difference for me anyway, backwards. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I had a great workshop. It went really, really well. It ended at 5 o'clock on Sunday, and at 5:15, I started to get my first symptoms within 15 minutes. So I had been lightly conflict active that whole time. Is this going to be okay? Am I going to be able to do this? Will I get enough sleep? Because the whole beginning threw me off. And so I started to feel a congestion and a little tickle in my throat at 5:15 that day. And so, it was 4 days of conflict activity. And now that it was all over with, my healing phase began. So I had extra fluid in those areas because healing always takes place in a liquid environment, like Dr. Varghese said. So I had had cell loss in my nasal mucosa. Now I'm going to replenish those cells. And I'd had some territorial anxiety, and I had cell loss in my bronchioles, and now I was starting to replace those. So those went well. Now I was still having to fly home the next day. Usually I take some homeopathics, and that kind of nips it in the bud enough, but I didn't have many with me. So I flew home the next day and realized that, okay, this is going to be a bit of a healing phase. So a long story short, I had about 2 weeks of healing symptoms while my cells replenished, lots of congestion, lots of coughing as well. And finally, at some point later that first week, I realized I had extra congestion in my lungs, like a rattling in my lungs and shortness of breath. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is what they'd call pneumonia, probably a walking pneumonia. So it was really intense. I've never experienced anything like that, doubled over, not being able to breathe at times. So it was a bigger healing phase for me, but I was deciding when I got home that I was going to optimize the healing phase as much as possible. I used the bio switch to switch off what I could. That only works so well. And so I decided, well, I'm going to really focus on optimizing this healing phase and supporting my body in such a big way that I get through the healing phases easily and quickly. And so that's what I did. I did a lot of near infrared heating, lighting, red light therapy. I did homeopathics, herbal tinctures, and things like that just to support. I also did the most important thing I could do is I rested as much as I could. And 13 days later, I had absolutely no symptoms, not even a stray cough. So I was able to finish all of that in 13 days, which felt really good. I'd never been able to do that quite like that before, especially since I'd had that little pneumonia as well, which is probably the bronchial mucosa program, territorial anxiety, with a little bit of kidney collecting tubules, which just means that there's more fluid than normal there. So it had been intense. And what's interesting is that of all the classes that I teach every single week and the consults that I do, no one knew I was sick. No one could hear it in my voice. No one saw me cough. No one saw me sick. I knew that I was in healing phases. I knew I was supporting my body. I knew I was resting as much as I could in between consults and classes. And so I was able to get through this in a way that I wouldn't have if I'd gone the allopathic route of taking medicines to stop the healing phase, which would have meant I would have never healed biologically. So those cells that I had lost in the conflict active phase never would have been replenished in the same way. And those areas would have been probably a little weaker for the rest of my life. So I was able to finish the healing phase in grand style. And again, nobody even knew that I was sick. So I was really grateful for that. I was grateful for the knowledge of GHk Day to help me with such a healing phase as that. So there's my little story that I'm sharing. Okay, we have two more stories, and the next one we'll hear from Danny again, and he will be telling us about his IBS, his irritable bowel syndrome. Danny, go for it.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for sharing your story as well. Absolutely fascinating. IBS. I say that I suffered from IBS for 15 years. I did a little internal audit. It was actually 19 years I suffered from IBS. Started in 1996 until I finally switched IBS off in 2015. So I had IBS for nearly 2 decades. If you've not experienced IBS, then basically you get crippling intestinal cramps, loose motions, constipation, blood in your stool, stomach cramps, gas, wind, all sorts of very, very unpleasant things that run in that program. Through that 19-year period, very similar to my bad back, I would suffer maybe 3 or 4 large bouts of IBS per year. When the IBS became severe, I would be in a situation where I was literally nearly passing out on the toilet with stomach cramps, absolutely crippling. My final and largest bout of IBS came in 2015. I separated from my ex-wife in 2011. I met my new life partner in 2012 and introduced my new life partner to my family in 2015. I took my new life partner back to London, UK. My family organized a big party to celebrate the arrival of my new life partner. It was a beautiful sunny day in London, quite rare. We sat in my parents' garden and all had a wonderful day, got merrily drunk and had a lot of fun. Within 1 day of being back in the UK, I had the most crippling stomach cramps. I was basically on the toilet for every hour for 72 hours. 2015. This was actually also on my way to Toronto, where I was supposed to be taking my practitioner's with Ilse-Dora Laker for what was then Germanic New Medicine. He was unable to Toronto because of the fact that I could not be more than 10 seconds away from the bathroom before I ended up again with crippling stomach cramps and nearly collapsing on the toilet and passing out with pain. My new partner said, okay, Danny, let's use this new medical knowledge that you've been studying and see if we can solve this IBS problem. This was before I had taken my practitioner's course. So I said to my partner, I have this knowledge, it's theoretical. I don't really know how to use it, but what the hell, let's give it a try. So we laid on the bed in my parents' house, and literally we were there for a couple of hours, and I was bent in half with crippling stomach cramps, and my partner, 2 questions. She said, what is the conflict that causes the stomach cramps, and when does the pain start? So the conflict primarily in the colon is an indigestible anger conflict, a problem you cannot solve, and the pain starts after you solve it. So she said to me, what problem have we solved by coming to England? And I said, I have no idea. We laid on the bed for an hour, and then my subconscious mind gave me the answer. And the answer was that my ex-wife and my family used to fight like cat and dog. So when I said to myself that, oh, we've resolved the conflict that my family fight with my partner, my stomach went dig, 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 and in 2 seconds I was pain-free. And I have not had IBS ever since that day. I literally switched IBS off like a light switch, and it was the most incredible spontaneous cathartic healing experience I have ever gone through, or at least till that point, and it was life-changing and transformative.
Oh my gosh, Danny, that is fabulous. We always love to
Yes.
hear stories like that, right? That are just like, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. And it's so true. And we know Gamanisha Heilkunde, we realize that we are so much more capable of things than we ever came to realize until now.
I
So
had to explain to my wife, Andy, oh, okay, my stomach just went dig, 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 and now I have no pain. She said, what are you talking about? 2 seconds ago, you was writhing,
yeah.
folded up in half with stomach cramps. I said, yes, that's right. And my stomach went dig, 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 and the IBS pain just switched off, and it has never come back since.
That is so wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Danny, for sharing that. That's inspirational for every single one of us, for sure. Our last speaker, last but not least in any way, shape, or form, is Ellie, who is Eliabella from the Philippines, who will be talking about her laryngitis. Horseplay. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you so much, Andy. And thank you, Danny, for your story. Thank you, Global GHK, for the opportunity as well to partake in this special event. On March 1st, around 3 p.m., a flash fever hit me like a rock. One moment I was fine, the next I was on the sofa, motionless and fatigued. That night, I got 11 hours of sleep. The next morning, I felt pretty okay, except the next 10 days, my voice would be hoarse. My larynx swelled until you could feel it from the outside, hard, like a stone sitting in my voice box. You might call this a sore throat. Swallowing became an event because I had to take a deep breath and a moment of courage because it was just so painful. Talking was also worse. My voice was hoarse until I lost my voice altogether. For 10 days, I lived like this, day by day, night by night, but the symptoms were softening and lifting every day. I didn't take medication. I didn't go to a clinic. I took a bit of garden homeopathy and one essential oil to give me some comfort, but for the most part, I let nature do its thing. I used my usual biohacking machines like Andy, neurofeedback, red near light therapy, PMF, cellular repair mist, every single day like I've been doing for 8 to 10 years. By March 11th, 10 days later, it was done. My voice was back, no more pain while swallowing. The sensible biological special program of laryngitis was complete. Now, here's what a clinic would have looked like, a clinic visit. Doctor would confirm laryngeal inflammation. The prescription would be corticosteroids for the swelling, paracetamol for the fever, anti-inflammatories for the pain. They would tell me, rest your voice, come back if it worsens. And somewhere in there, they'll probably say, avoid anything that strains those vocal cords and don't drink anything cold. There wouldn't have been a question about what was happening in my life within a few weeks before the symptoms appeared. Not one moment of curiosity about an emotional shock. Just a bag of medications designed to suppress every single symptom. Now, if they knew Girmanische Heilkunde, they'd ask the right question. What happened to you 3-4 weeks ago? I would answer, well, on February 19th, my voice became hoarse because of horse play. On February 19, I visited a horse. His name was Journey, and a 5-month-old male foal. He was my height, muscular, already full of the pushy, nippy, boundary testing energy that young male horses are famous for. His mother went to the grass feeder and left me alone with him in the paddock. I had no idea what was coming. He started doing what young males do, pushing into my space, nipping, and then he reared. And then my heart raced. That was it. The moment of the DHS, the Dirk-Hammer syndrome or triggering causal event. It was acute and unexpected. I didn't know it was coming. I felt all alone and isolated. His mare mom was busy eating, and my aunt was busy talking to someone. No one can help me. I was caught off guard. Should I run? No, he's faster than me. Should I push? I did, but nothing happened. I was caught on the wrong foot. Then I did everything wrong. I swung up my arms to shoo him away, which is horse language for let's play. I made clicking sounds, also apparently horse for let's play some more. I was fluent in the wrong language and completely alone with the consequences. And eventually I stomped my foot and I swung my arms forward. But that moment, the DHS already registered. So I talked to horse friends. I had a pounding heart. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And finally, I asked my teacher to explain the behavior. And what she told me resolved my conflict. The foal wasn't threatening me. It wanted to play. It was horse play. The moment I understood that, the conflict resolved. The day after my fever, I felt really fine, except I didn't have a voice. It was hoarse. I decided to visit Journey at the farm, and even though I lost my voice, I had words to say to this big little horse who just wanted to play. I'm sorry. I love you. I see you. Happy birthday, Dr. Hummer. Thank you for giving us the 5 biological laws of nature. Your work deserves to have a voice, and here we all are giving it just that. And we hope more of the world will hear us and find the sacred freedom that you've gifted us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie. That was a beautiful story, and especially I loved it's about horses since I have horses myself, and I totally understand that. So what a wonderful story, though, as far as knowing Germanische Heilkunde and understanding what was going on. And then you were able to resolve it, take care of yourself, and get over it easily. So congratulations. That's fabulous. Wonderful. Well, what an incredible hour or so that we've spent together here hearing these stories, real stories that could be interpreted one way through modern or holistic medicine, and then also interpreted from the same, but from an entirely different perspective from GHK, and how different those perspectives were, and how powerful to see the same experience in a completely new way as we were all able to share. I hope this has been truly fascinating and hopefully deeply informative for everyone who's been listening. Thank you to all the speakers, all of you who were willing to share so openly your stories about yourself, and to each of everyone who's on this listening as well. Thank you for joining us today. My hope is that everyone's learned something today, so that you can begin to see symptoms and even life itself through an entirely new lens. That you can start to gently shift from the old way of thinking into a more biological understanding of what your body is actually doing and why. Take what resonated, even if it was just one small insight, and let that guide you forward. These small shifts in perspective can make a meaningful difference over time. The more we learn GNM Heilkunde, the more deeply it affects us. I'm wishing everyone clarity, confidence, and continued growth on your journey. Thank you all so much for being here. And over to Dr. Varghese for our parting words.
Thank you, Andy. Dear friends, respected family, faculty members, mentors, participants, and viewers from different parts of the world, as we conclude this Living GHK mega event conducted in connection with the 91st birth anniversary of Dr. GHk Day and World GNM or GHK Day celebrations, I express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every person who directly or indirectly contributed to the success of this program. I sincerely thank all the faculty members and speakers who shared their valuable experiences and insights today. We had the privilege of listening to presentations from dedicated teachers and seekers who are sincerely trying to understand and live this great wisdom revealed by Dr. Ham. I also thank all our mentors, technical support team, organizers, and friends from different parts of the world who continue supporting these activities of Global GSK with their time, energy, talents, and goodwill. My special gratitude goes to all the viewers and participants, both present and future, who are watching these recordings online. Your sincere interest in learning is itself a great support for this humanitarian mission. Global GHK has no selfish motives. Our only aim is to spread this great knowledge for the benefit of humanity so that people may gradually become free from the unnecessary fear about diseases and gain a deeper understanding of health, disease, and cure. I warmly invite all of you to actively participate in the various educational activities of Global GSK, including our regular Sunday classes, Wednesday webinars, online discussions, and future Living GHK programs. I also request you to share these recordings widely, subscribe to our Global GHK YouTube channel, and encourage sincere seekers to learn this knowledge. Our Global GHK GNM website is also presently undergoing renovation and transformation into the Global GHK platform for wider global outreach. If this knowledge is true, and I deeply believe it is, it deserves to reach humanity. Let us together preserve authentic GHK for a healing humanity. Thank you all once again. May God bless you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well done, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Thanks, everyone. It's been such an honor.
It was awesome, isn't it? Very, very, very soul touching, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. When we speak from our hearts like this and share our personal stories, there's nothing more than that. That's what life is all about.
True.
Good.
Have a good day, everybody.
Yes.
Have a good night too.
Thank you.
To us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Let's
Good
cut
night.
this out now so that Suhail can get this edited and get it posted up.
Let's leave and get
care.
into a WhatsApp chat.
Everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.